When life starts to feel like it's pulling you apart from the inside, when everything you try seems to take more energy than you think you have, that's not failure, it's transformation in motion. See, most people misunderstand struggle. They believe that when things get hard, something is wrong. But the truth is, the moment life gets hard is the moment change begins. Difficulty is not a dead end. It's a signal, a sign that your mind, your body, and your soul are in the process of breaking old cycles and wiring something new within you. The brain doesn't change through ease. It changes through repetition, resistance, and awareness. When you decide to shift a habit, a mindset, or a behavior, you're literally teaching your brain to let go of the old self and make room for the new one. That process, rewiring, isn't gentle. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be hard. Think about it. Every neural pathway in your mind is like a well-worn trail in a forest. You've walked that path so many times that it's easy to follow. It requires no effort, no thought. But the moment you decide to change, you leave that familiar trail and start cutting through wild, untouched ground. You're carving a new path through the thick forest of your mind. Of course it's uncomfortable. Of course it takes effort. You're not just changing what you do, you're changing who you are. Every time you resist going back to what's familiar, every time you choose the harder, better option instead of the easy one, your brain is literally firing in a new pattern. And that right there is the pain of growth. It's why so many people quit when they're right on the edge of a breakthrough. They feel the resistance and think, this shouldn't be happening. But resistance is the proof that it is happening. When you're learning a new skill, breaking an addiction, changing a belief system, or healing an emotional wound, the discomfort you feel is the sound of your brain's old circuitry fighting for survival. It's like an echo of your old self saying, wait, don't leave me. And that echo can be powerful. It can make you question whether you're on the right path. It can convince you that change isn't worth it. But it's only noise. The true transformation happens the moment you decide not to listen to that voice anymore. The human mind is built to conserve energy. It doesn't want to work harder than it has to. When you introduce something new, your subconscious immediately detects it as a threat because it's unfamiliar. That's why waking up early, working out, meditating, or staying consistent in your goals feels like such a battle at first. Your body and mind are calibrated to an old rhythm, and when you try to change that rhythm, it fights back. This is the science of struggle. You're reprogramming deeply rooted neurological connections. Every thought you think repeatedly becomes a physical structure in your brain. So when you try to overwrite that, it takes energy, focus, and repetition. That's the very reason most people give up. They don't realize that the fatigue, the doubt, the emotional chaos are part of the rewiring process. They think it's a sign to stop, but it's actually a sign to push through. Every time you persist through discomfort, you strengthen the new neural pathway. Every time you act in alignment with your future self rather than your past self, your brain fires differently. And the more you repeat it, the more automatic it becomes. What was once hard becomes natural. What once felt impossible becomes effortless. That's the miracle of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself. But it doesn't happen through wishing or waiting. It happens through hard, conscious effort. Through the willingness to be uncomfortable long enough to let the new wiring settle in. You've probably felt this in your own life. Maybe you tried to start something new, wake up earlier, eat cleaner, speak more positively, and at first, but then came the dip, the resistance, the fatigue. That's where most people turn back. But if you knew that those feelings were a sign that your mind was breaking its old code, you'd keep going. You'd realize that the struggle isn't punishment, it's proof. Proof that your brain is building new circuits of strength, focus, and resilience. It's like lifting weights for your mind. The burn isn't a sign to quit. It's a sign that your muscles are growing stronger. The same goes for your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors. What's really happening when life feels heavy is that your identity is expanding. You're not just thinking new thoughts. You're feeling new emotions, embodying new behaviors, and training your body to live in alignment with a higher version of you. That's why it's so hard. Your old emotional patterns are being rewired too. The fear, the frustration, the impatience, their chemical memories trying to pull you back to the familiar. When you observe them without reacting, you begin to take your power back. You're teaching your brain that it no longer runs the show you do. The next time you feel like you're being stretched beyond your limit, remember this: your struggle is evidence that your brain is evolving, that every ounce of resistance is part of the process of transformation. The wiring of your old self is losing power, and the blueprint of your new self is taking form. The heart is the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. The hardest part of transformation is not learning something new. It's letting go of who you used to be. Every time you decide to change, you're not just making a new choice. You're challenging your identity, your comfort, your history. That's why it feels like a war inside you, because the old self doesn't die quietly. It clings to you with every memory, every emotion, every routine it is built to survive. It whispers familiar stories into your mind, telling you it's safer to stay the same. It tells you that you've tried before and failed, that change is too uncertain, that the known even, if it's painful, is better than the unknown. But that voice isn't truth. It's just programming, the echo of your past, the mechanical patterns of a self that no longer fits who you're becoming. See, the human mind is designed to seek familiarity. It finds comfort in the predictable, even when the predictable limits you. Your subconscious is a record of every habit, emotion, and thought you've repeated. It doesn't care about your dreams. It only cares about what's known. That's why when you try to change, your mind pulls you back like gravity. It's not that you lack discipline or motivation, it's that your brain is trying to protect what's familiar. It believes sameness equals safety. So when you start acting differently, when you wake up earlier, change your diet, leave a toxic environment, speak up for yourself, your subconscious starts to panic. It sends waves of doubt, fear, and exhaustion to bring you back to equilibrium. But that equilibrium isn't peace. It's stagnation. When you feel that internal resistance, that emotional friction that tries to stop your growth, understand what's really happening. Your old identity is fighting for its life. It's a survival instinct. Every time you take a new action, your brain says, wait, this isn't who we are. It doesn't recognize the new pattern yet, so it tries to restore the old one. You might feel guilt for wanting more, fear for stepping out of the comfort zone, or shame for believing you could become someone greater. Those emotions are the armor of the old self. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs that your transformation is working. Because every version of you that has existed up to this moment is made of emotions you've memorized: fear, doubt, anger, sadness, insecurity. To break the identity loop, you have to stop feeling the same way every day. You have to stop rehearsing the same thoughts that lead to the same actions and the same results. This is where most people get stuck. They start to grow, but still identify as the person who's unworthy, who's not ready, who's not strong enough. They try to bring the old mindset into the new life they're trying to build, and it never fits. You cannot become a new person while thinking and feeling like the old one. It's like trying to download new software onto an outdated system. You have to clear space first. You have to recognize that the emotions tied to your past, your regrets, disappointments, and fears cannot guide you into your future. They were built from experiences that no longer exist. The more you revisit them, the more power you give them to shape your present. Think about how often people say, "That's just how I am." They wear their past identity like a badge. But that statement is really a declaration of limitation. "That's just how I am" means that's who I've been, and I've stopped believing I can change. But you're not meant to live as a memory. You're meant to live as creation. Every day you wake up, you have the chance to think new thoughts, make new choices, and feel new emotions. That's what evolution is: consciously breaking the identity loop that keeps you reliving yesterday. But to do that, you have to be willing to feel the discomfort of unfamiliarity. The old self will fight to keep control because it thrives on predictability. It will make you crave the habits you're trying to escape. It will make you miss the people who hurt you. It will remind you of failures to keep you small. But when that happens, remind yourself that you're not that person anymore. You're not your past reactions. You're not your worst decision. You're not your limiting story. You are the awareness behind it, all, the observer who gets to choose differently now. That's where freedom begins, in realizing that your identity is a choice, not a destiny. Every time you catch yourself reacting the way you always have, snapping in anger, doubting yourself, procrastinating, pause. Every emotion you feel carries energy. Every thought you think creates a chemical response that moves through your body, shaping how you experience the world. Most people don't realize that their emotions aren't just feelings, they're frequencies that determine what kind of reality they attract and create. When you feel resistance, frustration, or pain, you're not just feeling an emotion. You're witnessing energy that wants to move. But instead of transforming that energy, most people trap it. They let it build up through judgment, denial, or avoidance. They think something is wrong because they feel bad. But what if feeling that resistance is not a sign that you're failing, but a sign that your energy is shifting? What if the very discomfort you're trying to escape is the power you need to evolve? You see, energy is never lost. It's only transformed. The anger you suppress, the fear you ignore, the sadness you bury, all of it becomes stored energy that influences how you think, act, and decide. The reason so many people feel stuck is not because they lack opportunity, but because their emotional energy is trapped in old patterns. They are living in the emotional frequency of the past, replaying old memories, reliving old pain, reacting to old triggers. And when your body is emotionally addicted to those states, it doesn't matter how much you want to change consciously. Your subconscious keeps you vibrating in the same emotional signature, recreating the same results. The key is to understand that resistance isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It shows you where your energy has been stuck for too long. Every time you feel fear when stepping into something new, that's your body remembering a time it didn't feel safe. Every time you feel doubt, that's energy connected to an old story of failure or unworthiness. When you face those emotions, instead of running from them, you give them permission to move. You convert resistance into momentum. It's not about fighting your emotions. It's about feeling them fully without letting them control your actions. Because emotion is simply energy in motion, and motion means transformation. Imagine energy as water flowing through you. When it moves freely, you feel alive, inspired, creative, connected. But when you resist, when you tense up, when you cling to control, the flow stops. The water becomes stagnant. That's when you start feeling drained, heavy, uninspired. The only way to restore flow is to release control, to surrender to the feeling, to breathe through it and let it pass. Every breath you take with awareness begins to circulate that energy again. You turn emotional pain into fuel for change. You convert frustration into clarity, sadness into compassion, fear into courage. That's not just poetic. It's biological. When you shift your emotional state, your brain starts producing different chemicals, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins that align with the new frequency you've chosen. Most people believe their emotions just happen to them, as if they're victims of how they feel. But the truth is, emotions are feedback. They tell you what energy you're carrying, what thoughts you're repeating, what stories you're still living in. When you start observing them instead of reacting, you reclaim power over your inner world. You begin to realize that emotion doesn't have to dictate your choices. You can feel anxious and still act courageously. You can feel uncertain and still move forward. That's emotional mastery, not controlling your feelings, but choosing your response in the middle of them. When you learn to harness emotion instead of resist it, you transform your relationship with difficulty. You start to see that every challenge brings up specific emotions because it's meant to teach you how to use them as power. That moment when you want to give up because you feel tired or overwhelmed, that's energy asking for redirection. That's life testing whether you can stay centered when things get chaotic. Every struggle is a mirror, reflecting your emotional patterns. And when you can stand in the storm without reacting, without losing your inner balance, you begin to operate from a higher level of consciousness. You become aware that pain is not punishment, it's purification. It's the process of burning off what no longer matches your next level. When you move from resistance to awareness, something profound happens. You begin to generate energy instead of being drained by it. You realize that you can create emotional states intentionally. Gratitude, love, passion, joy, these are not emotions that depend on circumstance. They are frequencies you can tune into at any time. The more you practice it, the more your nervous system learns that it's safe to live in high-energy states. And when that happens, your entire reality starts to reflect that vibration. You attract new experiences, new people, new opportunities that match your internal frequency, because energy responds to energy. But this transformation doesn't happen through thinking alone. It requires embodiment, feeling emotions in your body, and consciously deciding how to use them. When you feel fear, instead of letting it paralyze you, take a deep breath and turn that energy into focus. When you feel sadness, let it open your heart instead of closing it. When you feel anger, use it as motivation to set boundaries or chase your goals. You become an alchemist of emotion, turning heaviness into strength, pain into purpose, chaos into clarity. That's what it means to master your energy. You stop letting the external world decide how you feel and start generating your inner state from within. You stop being reactive and become creative. Because the moment you understand that emotion is not a cage but a current, you can use that current to move forward. Resistance then becomes fuel. Pain becomes transformation. Emotion becomes the language through which your higher self communicates, guiding you to align your energy with the life you're meant to live. The moment you stop running from what's hard and start embracing it as part of your evolution, everything changes. The human instinct is to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to find the easiest way forward. But ease doesn't build strength, and comfort never created greatness. The hard path isn't punishment, it's the invitation. The invitation to become more aware, more disciplined, more resilient than you ever imagined. When you understand that life isn't supposed to be easy, but meaningful, the struggle stops feeling like a curse and starts feeling like a calling. The challenges you face aren't obstacles on the road, they are the road. Every experience that tests you is shaping the version of yourself you were born to embody. The truth is, freedom doesn't come from avoiding difficulty. It comes from walking through it. The very act of facing what scares you, of standing in uncertainty, of showing up despite fear, that's what makes you free. Because once you stop being afraid of the hard, nothing controls you anymore. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop needing validation. And you stop fearing failure. You begin to see that the hard moments are where character is forged. They strip away the illusions of limitation and reveal what's real: your will, your capacity to rise. The moments that break you open are the same moments that build your strength. Every great transformation begins with a choice to stop negotiating with your limitations and start living aligned with your potential. But that choice doesn't feel light. It feels heavy, uncertain, sometimes lonely. That's because the old self has to dissolve for the new one to emerge. You're shedding layers of who you thought you were, the identities you built to feel safe, the habits that once served survival but now block expansion. That shedding hurts. It feels like loss, but it's liberation. The pain of letting go is the cost of freedom. You can't take old fears into a new future. You can't become limitless while clinging to the limitations that made you feel secure. When you choose the hard path, the path of truth, growth, and accountability, you stop seeking shortcuts. You stop waiting for someone to save you or circumstances to change. You begin to realize that the power has always been within you, waiting for you to claim it. The hard path demands discipline. It requires you to show up even when motivation fades. It forces you to confront every part of yourself that resists responsibility. And as you do that, you start to feel a shift. You begin to understand that struggle doesn't define you, it refines you. It polishes your edges, strengthens your heart, and deepens your capacity to love, to create, to lead. When life challenges you, when it feels like the ground is being pulled out from under you, it's the universe asking, how much do you believe in your own power? The easy path never asks that question because it never requires faith. The hard path, on the other hand, makes you face yourself. It forces you to find your center when everything outside you feels chaotic. It teaches you presence, how to stay grounded when the world shakes. And in that presence, you discover peace. not because life becomes easy, because you learn to trust yourself, no matter what happens. Most people spend their lives avoiding pain, but in doing so, they also avoid growth. They live in the illusion of safety, never realizing that comfort zones are cages built from fear. Growth demands discomfort. You cannot expand while staying safe. You cannot evolve while staying the same. The very friction that feels uncomfortable is what strengthens you. Every time you push through it, your nervous system adapts. Your confidence grows. Your tolerance for uncertainty expands. You stop seeing failure as an ending and start seeing it as feedback. You stop judging yourself for struggling and start honoring yourself for continuing.